This training module covers the controller changes for the Embraer E2 aircraft. This material was developed by the Honeywell Flight Technical Services Organization. For more pilot training and videos, go to pilots.honeywell.com. This presentation is Honeywell proprietary information and is subject to export restrictions and is intended for personal use only. The E2 flight guidance controller, mounted on the center of the aircraft glare shield, underwent a significant redesign for the E2 aircraft. The new design is much simpler, with lateral and vertical modes separated on the panel, with lateral mode control on the left and vertical control on the right. The yaw damper button is no longer needed and has been removed. The AP button has been replaced with a larger autopilot on-off button. The auto throttle button, FMS, and manual speed knob have been moved to the left. The approach button has been relabeled from APP to APPR. The nav button has changed to LNAV. The FPA select knob was removed and combined with the vertical speed up-down wheel. The altitude pre-select is now a dual concentric knob with the outer knob adjusting 1,000-foot increments and the inner knob adjusting 100-foot increments. The panel lights above the buttons were removed. Pushing either flight director button now turns off both flight directors on both displays. The source button is larger and more centrally located on the panel, and the heading button was moved to below the heading select knob, and the bank button to turn on low bank mode was moved with the heading select knob. Changes to the PFD control panel were also made. The location of the minimums and Baro set knobs were swapped so that the minimums is now on the left and Baro set is on the right. The knob location corresponds to the display location of both the minimums and Baro set data blocks. Since GLS functionality is added, the VL button has been replaced with a button labeled NAV. A new Baro Preset Function was added, which required a change to the labeling from Push Standard to Push Standard Enter. The Baro Preset function on the E2 aircraft enables the pilot to preset a Baro value, even when the aircraft is flying above the transition altitude. This ensures a simple swap of the current Baro with a preset value. The active Baro value is in cyan, and the preselected value is in white and directly below the active indication. After aircraft power-up, the active Baro set indication displays the last known or set value from power down, and the preselect indication is blank. If standard was the last known or set value at aircraft power-up, the active Baro set indication displays 29.92 or 1013. Once the pilot turns the Baro knob, the preselection value appears and increments or decrements as the knob is turned. Pressing the Push Standard Enter button on the controller copies the preselected Baro correction into the active value and blanks the preselection correction field. Inhibit buttons have been consolidated onto a new Inhibit panel located on the center pedestal. The Reversionary Panel is used to manually or automatically control display reversion during display or AGM failures. Although the ADS and IRS buttons function the same as in E1, the display knob on the Reversionary Panel has been completely modified to work with the new display layout. On E1, the MFD reversionary knob was used to change the format of the MFD from Auto, MFD, PFD to ICAS formats. On E2, the display's mode knob is used to revert the on-side selected display with the adjacent display according to display logic software. The reversionary display's mode knob has a left, auto, and right selection. In normal operation, when the switch is in the auto position, the display software will auto-configure the DUs based on software logic requirements. This includes the requirement to have a PFD format be displayed on the outboard side of either DU1 or DU2 when the aircraft is airborne. There is also a requirement that at least one ICAS display be visible by both pilots. Let's look at some examples. When the left reversionary panel knob is moved to the left position, the DU1 is split into a 50-50 window format with the PFD on the outboard window and the inboard window formatted to whatever was in the left window of DU2, in this case the flight control synoptic. Note that an ICAS display must be shown, so the ICAS is moved over to DU3. DU2 is then disabled. When the left reversionary panel knob is moved to the right position, the DU2 is formatted to a 50-50 window, the PFD is moved to the left or outboard window, and the ICAS remains in the right or inboard window to preserve an ICAS on the instrument panel. DU1 has been disabled. An issue was identified on fielded aircraft that included failures or degradation of touchpad areas after continued in-service use. This failure created dead spots on the touchpad and caused pilots to be unable to move the cursor across the display. To alleviate this issue on E2, a coating has been put on the production unit touchpads, and CCD software has been modified which increases sensitivity even with the new coating. A new CCD function called Hot Corners was also added to both Load 27.2 and E2 aircraft to enable the pilot to quickly move the cursor to various points on the displays. By double tapping one of the 6 locations on the CCD touchpad, the 4 corners, the top middle, and the bottom middle, the cursor will quickly jump to the corresponding MFD menu location on the display. For example, to quickly move the cursor to the plan menu on the MFD, double tap on the top middle of the CCD touchpad. Similar to 27.2, repositioning the cursor to the available displays is still controlled using the display selection buttons on the CCD. Note that the cursor is not free-floating across all of the displays like on other Epic aircraft. To move the cursor from one display to another, the CCD display selection buttons must be used. Once the cursor is on a particular display, the cursor movement within the display itself depends on the format of the window. When an iNav window is selected, the cursor is able to free float around the display. When the cursor is in the ICAS display window, the cursor is locked to the CAS window as shown here. Window focus is shown with the cyan blue border around the CAS window. When the turning arrow icon is present, the CCD knob is available to scroll through the CAS messages. Just like in E1, everything but red warning messages can be scrolled out of the window. When a system synoptic is displayed, the cursor can only move between the top and bottom menu tab areas.
When an electronic chart is displayed on one of the MFD 50-50 windows, the cursor is available to free float around the display. To zoom in and out of a window, move the cursor into the window and turn the outer CCD knob. If an airport diagram is shown in the chart window, rotating the inner CCD knob will cycle through the available airport charts.
The captain's cursor is shown as a cross or plus symbol, and the first officer's cursor symbol is an X. It is possible for 2 cursors to be on the same display, but it is not possible for 2 cursors to be in the same display window. This image shows DU number 2. The onside cursor, or captain's cursor, is shown in the VSD. The offside cursor, or the first officer's cursor, appears with a transparent halo circle denoting an offside operation. If the first officer's cursor is then moved over to the left window, or the iNav, the captain's cursor, if it was inactive, would be removed from the display. If there is no cursor movement by the invading cursor for 20 seconds, the invading cursor will time out back to its home position. For example, the onside MFD checklist menu button. In this image, the captain's cursor has been placed on DU number 3, so it is shown as a halo format. After 20 seconds of inactivity, the captain's cursor will be automatically removed from DU number 3. When the display is configured in a 50-50 window format, a hard stop is created at the vertical center point of the display. This means that the cursor does not free float across the windows from left to right or vice versa, but will stop at the vertical divider line. To move the cursor across the line to the other window, Embraer has designed a double swipe feature where the pilot must double swipe their finger across the CCD touchpad. This permits the cursor to move across the vertical divider line. The reason for the design is to prevent inadvertent movement of the cursor from one window to another without a positive pilot action. For more information on Honeywell products and services, go to www.honeywell.com.